to cultivate them maybe from interest as well as a lot of practice. So I hope today when you've come to my class, you will be willing to read a lot in terms of what I will share. Mostly today, our lesson will be done from sharing, whereby you'll be able to see my screen and follow from my prompts. As in the way I'm guiding you, I hope you'll be in a position to do the same. Anyway, from a person who marks paper 3 of English, I'll begin by saying that imaginative composition is more about your linguistic capability more than any other thing. I realize that at the primary school level, most of the time we used to get a lot of marks when we were using these expressions. The idioms were giving us a lot of marks. But at the high school level, we are looking at something more. We are looking at your linguistic capability. The kind of English you are using, if you are to score out of 20, how would you score? That is what you call linguistic capability. And after that, I think I'll go ahead and outline the types of compositions. The types of compositions, I'll also go ahead and do what? And share my screen. Types of compositions that are likely to be tested include the following. Types of compositions that are likely to be tested include the following. How to share my screen? Focus on the first thing at the beginning. Creative writing is my title, and then imaginative compositions may be one among the following. And for each one of them, I'll be able to take you through the details, the nitty-gritty details that will enable you to score higher than what you're scoring right now. Number one, you have a narrative composition. A narrative composition will be in the form of you begin or you end with a given statement. And there are some students who are daring, they will ask, and if I don't begin with it, if you don't begin with it, what will happen is I mark your linguistic capability. And I'm hoping that with your linguistic capability, you're very good good enough to score something like 18, so that when I minus your 2, you'll still end up with 16. But you can imagine if your linguistic capability is at the C level is that one of getting something like 8, something like 9, and I still take your minus 2 because you refused to begin with a given statement, that one will take you to 0.5. So let's always follow instructions when it is about beginning or ending with a given statement. Another way we can present the narrative composition to our students is by asking them to justify a given proverb. All that glitters is not gold. Justify the validity of the given proverb. Anytime you see validate the given proverb, justify the given proverb, I'm actually asking you, could you give me a story pertaining to the given proverb, in relation to the given proverb? That becomes a narrative composition. Let me stop sharing my screen for a while, and anytime I stop sharing, it is so that I can capture your attention, so that you can also do a lot of listening and less of reading. Because as I'm explaining and another one is busy reading, they'll even be reading the bits that you are not yet at. We've not gone up to that stage, but they'll be busy reading. So forgive me for maybe that I've stopped to share my screen, but there's a reason for it. You'll understand it as time goes on. So imaginative compositions can take the following types. The first one was a narrative composition whereby you begin or end with a given statement. There's something I want to say about that. If you're told to begin with a statement, for instance, copy that statement word for word. Sorry, it seems that I had lost you a bit. Let me get back. Let me get back, and there's a chat on screen already. There's a chat on screen. Okay, the write-up will be shared later in our WhatsApp group. Yes, it always will be. We are looking at a narrative composition. You've been told to begin with a given statement. Please, learners, if you're given that statement, copy it word for word. If you miss out even on, maybe let's say that the beginning statement had, I met the farmers on my way to work. And then you go ahead and say, I met the farmer. Just omitting the letter S, we call it distortion. And it has happened 2024, 2025 in KCSE marking. If you begin with the given statement, but then you miss out on it, you miss out on something very small, I'll minus you 1. This time not 2. The one who loses 2 marks is the one who did not even begin with it. That one loses 2 marks. I mark your linguistic capability. Maybe let's say I give you 12 and then I minus 2 if you did not begin with it. What about you began with it, but then you ended up distorting? Distorting, even maybe leaving out one word. Leaving out, maybe it was in plural, you change it into singular. That one, because of not following instructions, I minus AD. AD means automatic deduction of 1. And another thing for the lazy ones, you know, in a society, you'll always have every type of a person. There's also the lazy one. The paper has been typed. Maybe they have their beginning statement. It looks like any other ordinary Saturday. The student takes their blue pen and they put a full stop after that. That one, I'm still coming for your minus 2. You have not used my given statement. You have to take your blue biro. I think we encourage the use of blue when you're sitting for our exams. With that blue biro, you copy out the given statement exactly as it is. Please do not distort. I'm still, for the one who might be lost, I'm still on the narrative type of a composition. You begin or end with a given statement. I've dwelt so much on beginning with it, there's still something I need to say about ending with a given statement. If you're told to end with a given statement, that should communicate to you it is your last sentence before you stop writing. Some people are told to end with to end with a given statement. For example, end your composition with the words, all is well that ends well. Actually, they incorporate it within their writing almost at the end, and they continue writing. They say how true that was. If you continue like that, we are also coming for your minus 2. You've used the statement, but why are you going beyond the statement? And you have been told it should be your last statement. Write a composition ending with the words, every dog has its day. That is exactly how you're supposed to end your composition. Any extra addition, it means you have not followed the stipulations of the rubric. We call requirements for every year, we call it rubric. So anytime you distort the rubrics, you have to lose some of the marks. On the narrative composition, it still said, when you're given a proverb to justify, it calls for you to come up with a story. A story is what you are calling a narrative composition. Give us a narration that can bring into focus the proverb. And the beauty of paper 3, we shall always have 1A and 1B. In case I give you a proverb that you are not sure, you understand the meaning, please don't attempt it as your composition question. You're spoiled for choice. There's still another 1B. You can always opt for 1B. Let me go back to sharing my screen. What else can I tell you about another type of a composition? We're still on types of compositions. What else can I say? And I'll say this. Apart from the narrative composition, we still have a descriptive composition. And in terms of testing in KCSE, the one that has never missed is a narrative composition. Even this year, you can take it to the bank. There will be a narrative composition among the choices given. But still, narrative composition is not the only type of composition we have. We still have another one that has been tested since I began marking. I've encountered it twice, a descriptive composition. One of the years, I can't remember exactly which year, you are told, describe the beautiful scenery of your village or your estate that makes you, that makes you proud of it. But I remember it was about a village. Or if you're not a villager, maybe you come from the town, you can describe your estate. That one makes up for a descriptive composition. And I'll tell you how to do a descriptive composition later in detail. We are also looking at another year. This one must be 2024, thereabouts, but don't crucify me on that. You can always go to KCSE Made Familiar and check exactly which year was it tested. It sounds, it feels like it wasn't long ago, so I can tell, I have a strong feeling that it was 2024. What was the question? They were asked to account an event, to recount. Recount is like remember. An event in which you played an important role. Recount an event in which you played an important role. That one becomes a descriptive composition. When I'll be going to that descriptive composition, I'll put more flesh to the bones and you'll understand it even better. But generally, a descriptive composition wants you to make use of your five senses. What did you hear? A blood-curdling scream. What did you taste? Maybe a tasty pilau in the wedding. What did you see? A gigantic man moving towards me menacingly. What did you smell? I smelled maybe something that felt like a rotting corpse. And another one becomes, what did you feel? I felt a cold shiver run down my spine when I felt someone suddenly touch me gently and say, don't be afraid. So if you are given a descriptive composition, remember the teacher said, make use of your five senses and you will be good to go. What did you see? What did you smell? What did you taste? What did you hear? What did you feel? Let me rest it for a while. Those one I'm still talking, still giving just the guidelines. When I shall go to the exact composition, I'll even present you on screen with an example that I've sat down, and it is mine, an original one. You'll be able to see, and you can always write better than the teacher. Some of you want to be writers, journalism. You can always do it better than the teacher. We don't doubt it. Another type of composition, in terms of which one is most tested in the exam, the one that is tested the most is narrative, followed by number 3, and by number 3 we call it expository or discursive essay. Expository comes from the word explain, or you can be told to discuss why women are the victims of gender violence. Discuss. You can still be told explain the negative effects of technology. So one substitutes for the other. It is the same type of composition. You explain or you discuss. And I'm not talking about descriptive. Descriptive was a different type of composition. When I'll be going to the discursive, I'll also give some details about the same. But trust me, the one that will take up the bulk of our time should be the narrative composition, because it is also very popular among our learners. Second, in terms of popularity, I don't know whether we say popular to the examining body. it is the discursive or expository. You explain or you discuss about a given topic. It takes me to my last type of a composition. It takes me to the last type of composition that is likely to come in the exam. And so far, since I became an examiner, I've not yet encountered it. But who knows? This might just be the year that it comes in the exam. So let you be prepared, let you have learned all the types of compositions. If I could ask how many have been part of a debating club, most of us have been. And if you understand how the direction that a debate takes, then you are a suitable student who can easily do the composition that I'm placing at number D, argumentative composition. And argumentative will not be like discursive. They will give you the leeway to either support or to oppose. You either propose the given motion or you oppose. That is why it is very similar to debates. So argumentative will take a format such as, I hope you are sharing the same screen. I want you to focus on number D. An argumentative composition looks very similar to a debate. You can either support or you can oppose a motion. So how will it be framed? How will my question be phrased so that you know this one is argumentative and not descriptive? It is argumentative and not expository. You'll be told to write a composition to agree or disagree with the motion, day schools are better than boarding schools. Agree or disagree. If you ever encounter such a composition, you are already on your way to being presented with an argumentative composition. Now, I have you for almost another 1.5 hours. Don't worry. I usually teach my lesson checking on time. All your needs will be well catered for. Be assured of the same. Now, there are some things I think I want to. Then my next subheading is on things to consider to write good compositions. That is my next subheading. But before I can consider how to write a good composition, I think I want to discourage some things. I want to discourage some things. And which are these things that I want to discourage before I can tell you what to do and what to avoid? Others are, if you want to do it, it is up to you, but I discourage. I hope you're understanding each other. There are some that I'll put under do not do. Others I'll tell you what to do to write a successful and appealing composition. But before I do, there are some two things I want to discourage. Number one, you can do it if you want. Okay, Gloria, give me time. I said each composition I'll discuss it on its own merit. Please just give me time. There's a way, a lesson, if it follows this, what is it called? If you follow this system in which I'm using to teach, all of these concerns will be put to rest. That when I go specifically to the argumentative, I will totally answer your question. Okay, thank you for being patient. I know you'll wait. Okay, so we are saying there are two things you can do if you want, but then I highly discourage you, and I'll tell you the reason I'm discouraging you. Number one, avoid titles in paper 3. Teacher, why are you telling me to avoid titles? I'm telling you to avoid titles because whether you have a title or not, I will not add you even a single mark. And for the one who does not have a title, I will not subtract you even a single mark. What am I trying to say? Avoid titles because they will not add value to your composition. That if I was to give you 13, I'll now give you 14. We don't mark like that. Number two, why am I discouraging you from having titles? It is because If you have a title, and you have some grammatical errors, your grammatical errors, I'll start judging them from the title. And we've already established your title will not add you any mark. So why are you having it? Another thing will be, when you have a title, you are killing the suspense of the examiner. I want to read your work. I want to get familiar with your work. I want you to pick my interest, nivutie, to read more and more. Once you give me a title, and some titles are looking like cliches. Cliche is an overused expression. The day I will never forget, my first day in school, you are already killing the interest that I might have had in reading your composition. But if you still want to have titles, you go ahead and have them. This one, I'll not deduct you any mark for having it, but I've given you the 3 reasons as to why it is better left unattended to. It is better left not being part of my composition. Another thing I highly discourage, listen to this. Avoid something we call cliches. A cliche is an overused expression. Anytime I see a student using a cliche, the student is already telling me I'm a C student. Anyone online who does not understand a C student will score between 6 and 10. What is a cliche? An overused expression. And I began by saying, at the high school level, what you're marking is your linguistic competence. How good a command of English language do you have? How good is your command of the English language? And that question will be answered in a few minutes when I'll now be showing you what are the things to do to write a successful composition. So, avoid cliches. Could I give an example of a cliche? A cliche is some example like this one, they really love it. Year in, year out. I see students using, I rushed to the frog's kingdom. Because maybe when you're in grade 6, your teacher, whenever you are writing that, she would give you a merit tick. Very good. Those expressions that have been used until trembling like a chameleon on a feeble twig, I was crying until my tears were forming, number 11. Those are the kinds of examples we are calling a cliche. And when someone is using cliches, we call their English bookish. Something bookish is something crammed. This one cannot be your own. This one you simply have not created. This one you crammed it, and then you go ahead and own it, write to me like it is yours. But already I see this student is not strong in creative writing. This student, the language already tells me the use of cliches, their English is bookish. Bookish, yani ulisoma tu pahali. You cannot even come up with yours. So those are the 2 things I want to highly discourage. Then I share my screen on how to write. And each point I want you to pay attention. Each point I want you to pay utmost attention. And in a minute, you'll access my screen. Things to consider to write good compositions. I've told you not to use a cliche. Now, you've told me not to use that direction to go to Nairobi. So what direction am I supposed to use? That is the guidance you've come online for. And each point you'll allow me to expound on it because it is basically what you're looking for before your composition can land the 19. Imagine even 20 we give. And if you don't believe me, find another teacher of English who marks paper 3. Ask them whether there is someone who has ever got 20. We mark your work at the level of the student. I'm not marking for a fellow teacher of English who has taught for 20 years. I'm marking for this student, and I want this student to stand up above the rest. If you stand up above the rest, I'm impressed. If I am impressed, what would make me not give you 18? Rhetorical question. Now, the teacher has said she doesn't want to see the frog's kingdom. How might she guide us on what we're supposed to write? Point number one will carry the most of your marks. And there's a true story I'll tell you about point number one. But first of all, we read it. Point number one, you want fluency in language. By fluency in language, the more I underline using my red pen, the more I have watered down your composition. I'm saying it is not worthy of my time. Every line, red, red. Already the one who will look at it after me already knows you're speaking broken English. I'm still on point number one. I want to compare something with a true story. Another student might write a composition. They do not have problems with spelling. They are punctuating their work okay. Their word order is okay. That student might write a composition and I still give them what? 12 up to 14. Without even the effort of these other points that I'll later on bring out. Each point, pole pole too, you guys. We shall get the understanding of what the teacher is trying to direct us to. The one that carries the bulk of your marks. That student who can simply speak correct English, punctuate correctly, that student, even without giving me a very interesting story, already they can learn 12. Already with a bit of effort, we can push them to 13, we can push them to 14. Just clear language, grammar. It goes back to your grammar. How much of grammar do you know? Another rhetorical question. So the true story was about getting 14 for a very plain composition, but you look at their language, a whole paragraph, you can't even find a mistake. What does the teacher do? She will put a very big tick across that paragraph. That one means when you're marking, if you could ask another paper 3 examiner, we call it a clean paragraph. What is a clean paragraph? A clean paragraph is a paragraph that maybe I've not seen merit ticks. Merit ticks mean that thing you have written that has made me so excited, I'm marking it. Like the way you use your language, I'll show you later. In my examples of writings, I've put it in bolded or maybe sometimes underlined it. But then there's just a paragraph that doesn't have an error in grammar. But then there's nothing. Someone has already asked a question. Let me finish my thought and then I'll go back and address you. Now, a clean paragraph, maybe they've not even used language above the other students, but then no spelling mistake, all the full stops at the right place, you can't find a problem with them. That student might get a 14 without even effort. The effort being only their English language. Someone asks, I will use a twisted title to make you curious and surprised, making the examiner to invest in my composition. Whichever way you choose, I don't think you even need the guidance of the teacher. You're okay. Whichever way you choose, as long as you get these marks as we are directing the others. Okay, moving on. Apart from fluency in language, because fluency carries the most of what will make you to score, we still have another element of good composition writing, and you're calling it. Don't worry, I'll share. Emmanuel, don't worry, I'll share. The reason I'm not sharing at times, the reason I'm hiding my screen so that I also get time to explain, and then I'll put it on screen again. Another element, you call it maturity. What is maturity? Imagine you have taught different levels of students, and what are they saying? Imagine someone at the Form 4 level writing for you a story about once upon a time they are going to the forest to pick fruits. Surely you are beyond 12 years, you are beyond 10 years. Let's see the maturity in your composition. What is maturity? Avoid once upon types of stories. And if I'm avoiding once upon types of stories because they're also bookish, umekram too. And then now you want to take that ogre story and own it as your own, as yours. So maturity is asking you to avoid such kinds of stories. We want to see that level of growth. And it can even include avoiding cliches. A person who has grown in their language, there's a way they can tell you something using the styles we have learned in literature. They might tell you something using sarcasm, and because you've not maybe, sorry, and maybe because you've not understood, you might end up laughing with them, yet they were being sarcastic. Please let's put off our mics. So at number 2, someone asked me to share my screen once more. Maturity, the cliches, the once upon a time stories, we want to see them being avoided. Let's go to logicality. Logicality. What is logicality? Let your events follow each other in a logical way. That is why I'll ask my learners to plan for their compositions. We need to plan for that composition. There is an instance whereby someone was writing a composition, and I think they were bypassed with by time. Time was no longer on their side. So whatever they have been told to use, that ending statement, they just threw it into it. And at first, the person I think was cooking ugali. The next minute, I don't know, it is a fire. The next one, so the person was just, the paragraphs were not flowing. The ideas failed to portray some kind of logicality. That is why a clever student, if I could advise you, because you know that the wise is advised, the clever one, because this paper will take you 2.5 hours, you can even take your 15 minutes, not 15, for this one composition, you can take 5. 15 is too much. I'm misleading you. You can take your 5 minutes, you've already chosen your composition between the two. And then you decide, my story will be about, in the middle, what will happen, and how will I end my story. These are just skeletons. You've just said, my story will happen maybe in Mombasa. In the middle, I'll be accosted by some people maybe some people who conduct female circumcision. At the end of it, I'll be saved. That is what you call planning. And with the planning, you'll achieve number 3 very comfortably, logicality. We want to see logicality in terms of the flow of your ideas. Allow me to move to number 4. In number 4, I want to emphasize on it. This one, if you read it just on your own, the ones who are fond of getting online, getting or out, online, offline, please, at number 4, I wish I could gain your attention. Number 4, we are saying on the screen, if you could just read, youth and culture. How do your people speak, their values, your age mates? If you could only depend on my screen alone and not listening, you might be tempted to think that I'm saying, if you're a Kikuyu, just write some bits of Kikuyu within. Okay, I'll address that question. You know, sometimes when I see something on screen, it distracts me a bit. I'm not saying you don't type. I'm the one who should be disciplined enough to finish speaking, and then I'll address your concern. A minute, please. So we were talking about youth and culture. How do your people speak, your age mates? Now, have you ever read an anonymous story, and then people at the end of it, they say, this one must be a woman who has written it. Another story you read, and then someone says, the one who has written the story must be an urbanized person. Huyu ni watao. What makes you say, and it was an anonymous composition, the same way that your composition, when I'll be marking it, it will be anonymous. The names nowadays, if you know about KCSE, we do not even have access to the name or the school you are marking for. You are just provided with scripts for you to judge fairly. You can even judge your own students without knowing. Now, with that anonymity, what makes me conclude this one must be a young person? This one must be urbanized person. This one must be a woman. It is because in your communication, you're able to put your whole self out. Unaji express in a very natural way. The way women would speak. That is it. The way a person of your age, your youthfulness will just come. Even though someone would say, I was busy in a matatu. I picked my earphones, not intending to be bothered by anyone. I started listening to maybe what is the latest song, maybe if I could make reference to it. That one already tells me you're communicating your youth. Your age will just come out somehow. If and now someone will ask me, teacher, why do you want to know my age? No, you're missing the point. I'm trying to say, if you're supposed to express yourself in a natural way, like you as youthful people, in terms of your story, because you also know that literature is a mirror of society. I don't expect a youthful guy to be reasoning like a grandmother who is in her 65. It can never happen. Literature is that mirror of society. What you're writing tells us a lot about your age, about the things you value. When I talk about culture, the things you value. And that is why most students will tell me that I went out and you were dancing. They'll always be dancing. It speaks something to their youth. If it were me who's writing the composition, I'll be speaking about I went for a chama. That is what maybe at my age, that might be the culture of people, women of my age. Allow me to stop sharing a screen a bit so that I can address a concern from one member. I don't want to leave her. I don't want to leave something and how can I leave? I don't want to leave anything unanswered and then they pile up. So someone says, could you kindly share it again, the notes I need to write them? I'll do you one better, Emmanuel. Instead of even writing them, I'll provide them in the group. You don't even need to write them. Whatever you need to write, maybe for your own memory and keeping yourself awake, you can just do the skeletons. Logical, fluency, maturity. I'll do for you there. I'll give you the write up. Now we continue. Someone says, so teacher, can you also use a bit of Sheng? And I want to answer Monica with all honesty. If you're doing it, don't overuse. Yes, in other words, you can do it. Like we saw a drunk young man. He was such an embarrassment. He suddenly approached my father. Mzae, unadaiaje? And then you can just go ahead and even some one of those examiners might not have understood Mzae unadaiaje. Simply to mean, old man, what are you up to? You see, this person is also being realistic on the youth and culture. But in answering of Monica, I'm saying, in answering Monica, we can do it. Monica wants to be wants to be natural, which we're encouraging. Really, really. A creative writer. Have you people ever come across um even the short stories that you've done? Even if I could pick December, there's some bits I wasn't understanding. The writer was going back to their native language. They wanted to make it originality. But as much as you are on originality, overusing it, you have lost me. Have you forgotten it was a composition in English? So, yes, you can do it, but then do not overdo it. Another one is saying, what if you are given a proverb like one good turn deserves another? In answering the reader, the person who has asked, I'm avoiding to read your name. I'm not sure I can read it correctly. Now, in answering that question, what if you're given a proverb? Number one, ensure that you understand the meaning behind the proverb. If you understand the meaning behind the proverb, you'll be able to give a scenario whereby something good has been done to them, and because of that, they were able to return the favor. Let's imagine there's a teacher of yours, maybe who was struggling that to keep you in school. That was one good turn. You tell us a bit about it, you explain. Later on, maybe you see this teacher or maybe their son who has been brought to your hospital later when you are a doctor, and then you repay the favor. It will depend on, do you understand that proverb? If you understand the proverb, well and good. Still someone asking, what happens if your paragraphs talk of different things? Now, If your paragraphs are speaking of different things, I think we're supposed to have a session with you whereby we can teach you about developing paragraphs, because someone, in fact, that one we can call it irrelevant. Irrelevant is punishable in a punitive way. Punitive ni kama nakupatia pano. Irrelevance is -4 marks. That is someone who's simply writing sentences that are to do with English. They began with, maybe they were someone who works in a bank. The other time, I don't know, my teacher came to class. There is no logicality. Logicality, you risk being irrelevant. Irrelevant -4. If your composition is irrelevant, we -4. And I'll tell you how else you might end up being irrelevant, how else you might find yourself being irrelevant. And I'm sure all these mistakes are never intentional. They are never intentional. When someone is writing their final paper, I'm sure that person is doing their best, the best of my ability. They might stray without knowing. Someone asked, Mwalimu, there was a time you have said about imaginative composition. To avoid, you can repeat the answers like to avoid titles. Okay, this one's are only two. I said avoid titles. Number two, avoid cliches. Cliche is an overused expression. So someone says, is this a cliche? We scrambled outside into the world of liquid shadows. If I was marking for you, myself, I've never even seen it. Rogers, myself, I've never even seen it. So it will be so difficult for me to judge this one as a cliche, because even the speaker, your teacher already, am not even familiar with it. Okay. Could I go back to sharing my screen on what to do? Could I continue sharing my screen on what to do to write good compositions? I'll take you there. Wait. Youth and culture have understood. How do people, maybe even how do drunks speak? You are bringing it out in a realistic way. What kind of values? A student is able to, there are some compositions you see at the national level, you're left with, wow. You can see this one is a student who has written because of even the kind of things they value, the kind of way they would even speak. Another thing, number 5, moral lesson. In paper 3, one of the goals of education is to instill morality in you. Some people, you can agree with me, they might come to school, they might end up getting the D or the E, and I'm not encouraging you to get the D or the E. But then they end up, they've grown, they are very morally upright. Sorry? They have grown, they're also morally upright. Therefore, we are also supposed to instill morality in new people. And to avoid a lot of words, what will I tell you? I'll say, a story, good must always win over evil. What do I mean? Good must win over evil. Teacher, are you telling me in my society there are no people who kill and they get away with it? Of course, there are people who kill and they get away with it, but we are now guiding you towards the requirements of paper 3. If you talk about someone who was killing a lot of people and he went ahead to live happily ever after, yours is punishable by -4. We want to see, in other words, someone will still ask, teacher, so we are not supposed to talk about bad people yet they're in our society? Talk about the bad people, yes. But then we want to see the bad getting punished. We want to give an avenue for change. Let the person get arrested and even come out of prison after 2 months. But you want to see punishment of the wrong. Someone still asks, in one paragraph sentence, is one paragraph sentence accepted? Mostly in the paragraph, e.g., announcement did not just come, it bounced. There you end your paragraph. Oh, I think I've got what you're asking. Is a one paragraph sentence accepted? That one is not really a paragraph. That one is a way we can capture on mood. And there's another thing, I think it is one among my points. We need to capture on mood. And I think when I get to that point, I want to go back to that sentence of yours and use it to demonstrate what I'm trying to tell my other students. Now, we've agreed at point number 5, good should win over evil. If there's evil, let that person be punished. We are instilling moral lessons. If you leave them unpunished, there's a way you're losing -4. That your composition lacks morality. It lacks moral lesson. Number 6, creativity. I'm wondering, why are my students always a student in Form 4 who is late for school? Can't you become more creative than that? Can't you see something that happens in your village, in your family? No one will come and ask you, mean your father is like this? No one will come and ask you this. You can always assume a persona. Some writers are so good. Someone might be male, they're writing you a story, you might be tempted to think the person is a lady because they own the persona. They live that life of that persona, yet they might be writing about their auntie. Now they own the story, they make it mean me. That story happened to me. They're assuming a persona. So I want to encourage my students, be creative. Today you can become a student. Tomorrow you can become that village elder. Please just create personas. Number 7. Do you remember at number 1 I was talking about fluency in language? How much can you command using the English language? How much can you command using the English language? That is what you're asking. So when you're commanding using the English language, I want to see number 7, variation. I want to see variation in the types of sentences. What do I mean by variation? Can you use inversion? Let me give example of inversion that is very common in our grammar. Little did I know, no sooner had I, hiyo ni nini? You are making use of inversion. Do you know how to use such things correctly? Or even someone can use another inverted sentence and say, bitter I was, but to forgive I decided. That one is already my red pen. I know this student has a command of English. They can play around with words of English without making an error in grammar. We're talking about types of sentences. Mix them up, invert at times, make use of compound sentences. You know, compound sentences, the ones that I say something like, I went over, but I didn't find her. She is the teacher, yet she is confused. Those are compound sentences. Can you also use simple? Can you use complex? Complex is the ones that we are using. Uh, we are using the other type, subordinate conjunctions. You talk about something like, although she was my mother, this lady had put me through a lot of. Those are the types of nataka uchanganye zote. And now someone asked me, teacher, how do I use a simple sentence? At the national level, we encourage them to make use of the simple sentences to capture mood. Let me stop sharing my screen. Kidogo tu. How can I make use of simple sentences? You know that a simple sentence is the one that communicates a single idea. For example, someone says, all these tips I'll give. There's someone whose camera is on. Truly, it can be very distractive. So let me first of all finish with simple sentences to build up on your composition. You don't just give the information, pap, haraka haraka. You can take it slowly and say, I arrive in school, full stop. Nothing, no one in class, full stop. 5 more minutes, full stop. Still no one, another full stop. Might I be at the wrong place? Question mark. I decide to check my watch, another full stop. In the end, what do you say? Oh my, you mean it is the 21st of April, oh my, this wasn't the day we had agreed to meet. Utuambi tu haraka haraka. I went in and I found no one. I knew it wasn't the day. You're already becoming boring. You are already becoming boring. You can capture on the mood. Even maybe when there's tension, you say, Musa, come to the front. A voice boomed. I raise my head. Full stop. I avoid his eyes. Another full stop. Knees trembling. Another full stop. You're capturing that mood, the way you are tensed, but you don't bring it arakaraka. I was so tensed. There's a place you are taking us. So we read on and on. I'm teaching you how to use simple sentences to do what? To capture on the mood. A student who does this in the national level, at the national level, in the final exam, you find yourself impressing the examiner. What you want to tell us? Can you bring it pole pole? So that you capture the mood. You want to see if it is tension. You want to see that tension being brought out pole pole, slowly. Until once I'm done reading that, I'm like, okay, so this is where you are taking my understanding. And then there's a chart that I was to make reference to. Don't worry, all of your concerns will be addressed. There's someone who's asking, is a one paragraph sentence accepted? Mostly in the first paragraph. That is the same thing I'm calling the mood. You can just give us, but it shouldn't be a paragraph. Because now, a paragraph, maybe when you're making someone to speak directly, that one you can take it and just start on a clean line. But I'm imagining, how can it be a paragraph? Yet you're telling our students a paragraph is a series of sentences that are relating. How can it be a paragraph and it is one sentence? Unless you say, for effect, we have stylistic effects. We have stylistic effects, and I can use that person's example and even talk about suddenly all the teachers had arrived at the assembly. We are going home today. Over here, I'm making use of the direct speech. We are going home today. I put my full stop, I close the speech, and then I go to the next line and I use this one that Rogers has helped me with. And then I say, the announcement did not just come, it pounced. That is very good. The creative writing, that one is someone capturing the mood. That one is someone making use of styles learnt in class. That one is someone who is achieving something you already called maturity. Apart from maturity, avoid cliches, avoid this once upon a time stories. Maturity is also making use of the language at that level of a form 3, at that level of your of a form 4, level of a form 3, level of a form 4. Another question comes my way, and someone is asking, you can help me with the tips for making better examples. I'll even share compositions, and then from there I'll be drawing the tips. Some of them you may underline, some of them I've bolded. Yes, I will share the tips. Another is asking, how can you convince your teacher that you have not used a cliche, but instead you have explained your point further? My answer to this is overusing. You can use that one cliche, but then you go ahead and redeem yourself. The composition is not pegged on one sentence. That composition is like 2.5 pages. Therefore, you can use a single cliche, we let it slide. Tunailenga tu, we let it slide. Because as I'm continuing to read, it is not I rush to the frog's kingdom that will make me give you a 03. I'm reading the whole composition. The person might have used a cliche, then in between their composition, they redeem themselves, and I'm like, Allah, so you are such a good student of creative writing. You might redeem yourself at some point. So point number 7 was about you make use of variety of sentences. Let me move on. Number 8, 9, 10. Number 8, 9, 10. If I can tell you what to avoid. It is almost 1 hour. We are still on what to do. So we are saying at number 8, communicate your whole self. I will share one of the compositions And you'll see how someone communicates their whole self. Normally, for example, when you are stressed, you might find yourself, I started biting my nails. You communicate your whole self. And whenever I was biting my nails, I knew this meant I was tense. I decided to pick a glass of cold water. The irony was that the more I'm drinking the water, the more I'm sweating. That is communicating your whole self. We are almost bringing it alive. You're writing it on paper, but I can almost see you biting your nails, reaching for that glass of water, and the wisps of sweat cascading down. You're communicating exactly how you. If I tell you in Sheng today to do it, they're very good storytellers. They will tell you a story, and people will be like, hey, alafu, and then they're very good storytellers. Now you want the same skill you have in storytelling, bring it now in English and apply what you're saying. You'll be a very good student who can write a creative piece. Communicate your whole self at number 8. Normally, how would you say it? Your feelings, are they felt? What are you telling us? Is it felt? This one, there's a composition. I think I'll be able to bring it out very uh, in a better way when I will share that composition in a while. So what will I do? I think I'll go to up to number 10, then what to avoid, and then I give you a sample. Number 9, you're saying capture the mood. This one I've already touched on it. Mood can be captured. You bring it slowly. How can you bring it slowly? You can even do short sentences, rhetorical questions. I looked at her. I looked at him. A short man of about 4, I don't know whether it is feet, whatever, but we're talking about height. He had some wire-rimmed glasses. How cheap they looked. Isn't it a sentence? Fupi fupi. There's something you're bringing us to. Later on, you say, I had wanted to meet my father. Another full stop. It had been 17 years. Suddenly, this man stood before me. Might he be my father? And a question mark. How come he is that short when I am very tall? You're already capturing that mood of doubt. You're bringing it pole pole. Okay, there's still another concern on my screen. Someone says, uh, you cannot break an omelette without breaking an egg. And some of these sayings that you are giving, Rogers, but I agree, language is diverse. You might have a lot of, what are they called? A lot of idioms, a lot of proverbs. But then when I don't also know the meaning of it, I might be at a loss on how to answer it, because let me read this now as a teacher of English. You cannot break an omelette without breaking an egg. This one looks to me like a proverb. I'm not familiar with the proverb, but this one looks like it has another inner meaning. That someone says you cannot go to step number 2 without passing through step number 1. That is what I would get. I wrote it since it simply means you cannot achieve something important without encountering a predicament, but it was underlined. Was I wrong? Maybe, but I don't know why it was underlined, because even proverbs from your community, do I know them? I won't know them. From my community, would you know them? So you cannot you cannot make an omelette without breaking an egg. I see what he says. He's talking about something undesirable. An egg has to break before you can, maybe, I don't know why your teacher underlined it. You can always consult with her, because even a proverb that I don't know, if it gives me that meaning, because someone might have taken it from the ethnicity and simply translated it to English. If I understand the meaning of it, I will not care whether I know the proverb or not. I think I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Another one is asking, which is the right format when starting a paragraph? Starting at the margin or at the middle? Monica, we don't judge on that. Our main interest out of 20 we are looking at that composition. This one we do not, whether you're using the block or you're using the indented. You know, indented, unataka space to indicate that I'm starting a paragraph. The first line is indented a bit, or block. We do not penalize on any. They write the way they want. Even others are skipping a line. We do not mind at all. Some of them are using the block, skipping a line, the story continues. But myself, when I was ever being taught, all the times I've been taught a composition is to indent. But because at the national level, there's nothing we do to them, I don't know which one appeals to you the most. Composition length will be the same in all paper 3 questions. 2.5, you're using A4. 2.5 pages if you're using your A4, the one that most of our Form 4s are using. In the KCSE booklet, we allow up to 3 pages. There's no length for composition, length for question 1, length for question 2. All the lengths in paper 3 are standard 2.5. What if you don't skip a line? I've never seen where we are penalizing anyone. We want to see the flow of the story. Someone is asking me, Cha, what if I do block format and I'm not even skipping a line? I'll just follow the flow of your story. And by the time the student does not know how to demarcate a paragraph, probably also, and I'm not speaking about the one who has asked the question specifically, please forgive me if maybe you feel maybe the teacher wants to attack me. No. But probably a student, if they cannot draw a clear boundary that this is a paragraph, this is another one, that one also tells me that must be a very poor student, even in the use of language. Number 10 at last. Someone says they'll give me a title that will make me curious and all that. Maybe your point might be valid. At number 10, we want to see twists and turns. A student who gives us an ending we never saw coming are the kinds of compositions we want to see. But at the same time, maintain morality. Twists and turns can be something like you come to a new school, the principal just takes to you. The principal just loves you, takes to you, loves you. And the principal, even when you want to be sent home, he says, no, let me just help you clear the fees. I want you to grow up into. Until one day, your mother drops in for you to see your mother and the principal speaking in such a friendly way. Only for you to realize that interest the principal had on me, had with me all along. It was because he was actually my father. That one is a twist and turn. We never saw it coming. We were all along, you guided us to think this principal is a very kind person. Let me give you another one. One of the compositions I was marking. One of the compositions I was marking, it wasn't so much into a complex language. It was simple. Someone was speaking about the way she saw someone in tattered clothing, and the person would say, spare $1. Spare me $1. And this person was feeling this person is becoming a nuisance. I would even avoid that path because that person is ever asking for money. Only for one day to encounter the same person under a bridge. And she saw that person had bought a lot of many loaves of bread and he was distributing to others. And the person says, I was so ashamed. I wish that the shame could have consumed me. Little did I know, this man was taking not for himself, but to help others. What is that? That one is a twist and a turn. We never saw it coming. We just saw a beggar. This was a beggar who was taking so that he can do what? He can also go and help other people. That is a twist and a turn. What is a twist and a turn? Something we never saw it coming. It makes that composition even worthwhile reading. I'm still sharing my screen for the most part of today. And in my screen, there's something I've said, what to avoid. The other two I said, cliches, and the title I said, hakuna kitu nitakufanya. But now over here, you've seen clearly I've written what to avoid. This one will attract automatic deductions. If I deduct 4 from you, My supervisor will not add you even one because I'll explain and say, I've deducted 4 because of immorality. I've deducted 4 because of irrelevance. Irrelevance is also -4. Now, someone might wonder, how does irrelevance come in? But let's start our points from number 1 so that we don't miss out on any. Number 1, you've seen, I've said what to avoid because I will penalize you. Number 1, exceeding the recommended length. Recommended length, you've already asked, I've answered. If you exceed those 3, in that KCSE booklet, I will -2. Exceeding length, we -2. Number 3, let me skip number 2 and go to number 3. There's a reason. Number 3, failure to adhere to stipulated instructions. Stipulated instructions, we call them rubrics. Have you been told to begin with a statement? You decided I'm not. You decided after that statement, simetaipiwa, mi nitaweka full stop. I will -2. That is point number 3. Now the ones we heavily penalize, number 2 and number 4, we penalize you. The penalty is hefty because also you are whatever you've done is also hefty. There's a student who was very clever, and clever in quotes. They were told to write a composition to justify the proverb, all that glitters is not gold. Unajua alifanya nini? The student goes ahead and says, sometimes you might see something that looks very good. And then imagine they've turned that narrative composition into a discursive. We shall mark your English. It is what brought us to paper 3. We shall mark your English. Then at the end of the day, I will -4. And by the time the student cannot tell this composition will fall into which category, even their English is wanting. I'm very sure. Their English is also wanting. They don't know when to do the narrative. They don't know when to do the discursive. As when someone uses a pencil, we mark, but why now is someone, by the way, we've marked very many times. But why should we just not do the right thing? Why don't you use the biro? I'm sure the examiners are very helpful. I've ever been one. Excuse me, teacher, my biro has just stopped writing. They'll go out of the room. Even the principal will assist you. They have very many blue biros. But maybe someone is avoiding to cancel. Every year, imagine I've met someone writing in pencil. We still mark. So number 4, I've said changing the type of composition. You have been told to give to explain why women are victims of domestic violence. You're very clever. What do you decide to do? You give us a story. There was once a woman who used to be very I don't know what word to use, but then her husband used to beat her. You're not giving us a story. I will mark your English. At the end of it, I'll -4 AD. And after that, the comment in brackets, irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? It was a narrative you changed to be an expository. It was an expository, you changed it to be a narrative, -4. Let's save the best for last. Number 2. Did I say we keep morality? Yes. If you glorify immorality, what will happen? There's another question I've seen. I'll answer. I'll answer. Glorifying immorality is things like what? There's a time we're reading compositions as teachers. Someone has not censored. This is a student who does not even know how to use euphemism. They're talking about the way they were removing each other's clothes, then they were dancing. You're like, is this still a composition? Is this one in school to gain morality or immorality? That one, I'm coming for your -4. Immoral. Number 2, how else can I bring out immorality? When evil wins over good. You tell us about the way you were a very bad boy. First of all, you began by beating the teacher in school. You were expelled. You decided this is not the end of life. After all, I can join a gang. You become a member of Gaza. You terrorize the people in the estate until you people are feared. Even people, when they see you, they just give you their phones without you asking. Suddenly, a friend of yours comes and tells you, you know what? There's a bounty on you. A bounty is if you bring this person, he shall give you 100K. You decide to take the first train to Mombasa. When you alight at Mombasa, a lady who is very beautiful welcomes you with a smile. And you and that lady, you decide to go and live happily ever after beating the teacher, murdering people, joining outlawed gangs. What are you telling us? Evil has one of our good. If you try that we know in real stories, some of you will become writers later in life. You can write such a stories. But KCSE stipulations, if you glorify immorality by allowing evil to carry the day, I -4 and I indicate in brackets that one is immorality. For the one who might read your composition after me. Someone now asks, I answer this concern. When someone cancelled with a pen, why do they circle it most of the time? That one is your teacher. She doesn't like dirty work. At the KCSE level, we don't circle it at all. We write it. In fact, it is not me who writes it is my supervisor in the green pen. Nampitishia, let me even tell you in Kiswahili, nampitishia hiyo karatasi ananiandikia COW. COW si ng'ombe, it's not a cow. It means candidate's own work. Because a teacher can also be malicious. I can come with a blue pen, with a blue biro in the exam room, but our teachers don't do that. I'm just giving an example. I can come with a blue pen, and because you have written a lot, I take my blue pen, I cancel your page 3, yote usinichokeshe. So anytime I encounter cancelled work, I pass it to my supervisor to claim I've not done it. It is COW, candidate's own work. Hii ni kazi ya mwanafunzi, not mine. So maybe your teacher just circling it is maybe you've made your work dirty, but we allow that. Because are you telling me you'll start over the composition? Where is the time? Is time waiting for you at the national level? Let me assure you, we do not do that. We do not do that. Another question. Okay. There's someone who says, let me first of all answer Emmanuel and then I give this person an opportunity to speak a minute. We are together. Someone asks, my fellow student, I have one idea. If you do not know the meaning of a proverb, do not do it to avoid missing marks. Yes, we've given you choices. Therefore, go ahead and do what? Pick the one that is most suitable for you. Okay, then someone has a question for me. I'll allow you to unmute. Ask me the question, please.
Okay, my name is Mike from Kitale.
Yes.
I'm
Okay, Mike.
aspiring to be a teacher. Now, I've got a question in terms
Yes.
of imaginative composition because I've been teaching somewhere, and there's a student who keeps on. Yes, the student seems to be good in terms of writing.
Go on.
But the kind of keeps on writing. Like majority of compositions is like they have got a lot of intimacy in them, acts of
That one.
intimacy. Is
That
it
one is
in
immoral.
KCSE?
It is immorality. Because when you're writing, have you learned euphemism? You know, there's a time. I hope Mike have not. Okay, let me give you still one more minute, Mike, please. You finish asking your question. I feel like I've jumped in. Yes, continue. Okay, maybe. If I'm not getting it from
Okay.
Mike, let me continue. Oh.
Okay, I think you've already
I'm losing you. Okay, let me give an example that I encountered from a student sometime around the corona period. It must have been around 2020. Because students are always writing about their youth and culture. So all of them will think in the same line of reasoning. They went for a bash. One boy said she started touching me. We were now removing clothes. We were moving to her mom's bedroom. That one is immorality. -4. Compared to this other one, there's one who told me the same kind of reasoning, but the person said, I saw a very beautiful girl and I approached her. Later on, and the story was about choices have consequences. That was the concluding statement. This one now, the one who knows literature, the one who knows they can use euphemism. They did not tell me what happened between him and that girl. But then they went ahead, and later on, he meets the girl from the party. Some 3 years later, the girl says, "Hi, Gerald, meet your daughter." One look at that little angel, and she was a spitting image of me. That is a person who already told you, without telling you, what happened on that particular day in that party. Because someone will still argue, teacher, literature is a mirror of society. Are you telling me it doesn't happen in our society? It happens. But then when you are so centered on it, we are wondering, are you writing that composition or are you bringing to focus what is in your mind, which is no longer about the composition? That is how I will answer that question. So, immorality, -4. Irrelevance, -4. Now, the types of compositions. The types of
I have
composition.
a question.
Oh, sorry, Doreen.
I have a question on that point of immorality. Like,
Yes.
it's very easy. The easiest composition is usually where you talk about, like, you were in school, you got into a bad group, and you
Mm-hmm.
guys started taking drugs, and then of
Uh-huh.
course you end up the story like you regret. But how
Yeah.
can I bring up
Mm-hmm.
drugs? Ama
Mm-hmm.
hiyo iko kwa immorality,
No,
you
no, no,
know?
no. It is a mirror of society. You've already answered yourself, Doreen, by saying we used
Mm.
drugs, later on we regretted. That one is already good winning over evil. You're using
Oh,
the
so
drugs. You want to see the
because now,
awakening. Uh-huh.
like in the story now, like if I start talking about how nice it
Mm-hmm.
was to rob people and take the drugs and enjoying the drug, you see immorality.
Mm-hmm. This one I'm a bit conflicted. Doreen is asking the way they were enjoying the drugs. I think I found the way to answer you. I
Mm.
want to live that experience. I'm trying to now put it in form of a composition. They are taking drugs and they are really having fun, and
Yeah.
then they are robbing people. They're making a lot of money. Your saving
Mm-hmm.
grace will be the ending of that story. You can twist it a bit
Okay.
and even talk about one of the members maybe
Mm-hmm.
went crazy, and
Mm-hmm.
you even saw maybe one of them terrorizing the mother. Want to see that awakening? If this
Oh,
person
okay.
can kill his mother in cold blood, I started to see whatever we were assuming was fun, we were ruining our own. That one is an awakening. The person is already
Also,
bringing himself back to the fold and telling us whatever they did was wrong. But then, when they were reliving the experience, what are they just doing? They are
mm-hmm.
making it realistic. They are also
Mm-hmm.
in youth and culture. But then at the end of it, call yourself back to that meeting and remember good wins over evil.
And
Okay?
then what about in cases of like maybe robbers came, or like there was a violent incident and maybe you are trying to save your mom or your family, or
Mm-hmm.
you're protecting your mom against your dad, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Mm-hmm.
end up like maybe there was a weapon and then you killed someone. Where does that, because I'm being a hero, right? So, but is
Mm-hmm.
it still immoral that I kill them and I don't feel sorry?
Uh, okay. Whenever I'm talking about glorifying immorality, There are these students I don't know. Even today, you can submit your compositions. At the end of it, I say, and this one is naughty. Did I say they are naughty from one sentence? It is not because you have killed that person. Maybe you're saying, I had to do it. The compulsion to save my mother was strong. You're even trying to justify by saying what was pushing you. Was it the glory for I need to kill someone? Or was it that compulsion to save your mother? That one I think I'll let it slide. Hiyo sita kupenalize on fact that you are letting a bad win over evil. With that, there's a way you can twist it. That compulsion to save your mother. These people were robbers. After all, I did not intend to kill them. Maybe he pointed a gun at me. I knew it was me, or, in fact, that is what you learn in philosophy. Morality sometimes can be, even in a court of law, you might have killed that person and then you take each other to a court of law. The circumstances might be extenuating. You might be in a position whereby unajitoa because of the circumstances. They attacked me. It was either me or them, and you can put it. There's a way you can make it better. With a shaky hand, I needed to maybe to stop him. It was either my mother or him. I chose my mother. Over there, you are not glorifying. We are looking at the circumstances. You've never killed. You are in a bid to save your mother, and at the end of it, you decide to choose your mother at the expense of the other person. Here, do you have the samples of the compositions that you have discussed? I do have them. I have the compositions, and there's someone. I think the person will add. There's someone I'm giving my number. Just a minute. It's like I'm not good at multitasking. There's someone I'm giving my number so that later on they can also be at an advantage. They can chat me in my personal inbox. We speak about whatever they are asking. Now, you people, are you ready for? Is this class for students or teachers? All of us that want to gain. All of us that want to gain. I'm a teacher, but there's sometimes I'm even teaching teachers. Even sometimes I'll sit in a class for paper 2 because I don't mark paper 2. Don't worry. We are all at the right place. Don't feel intimidated. All of us are gaining. We are okay. Okay. There's something I want to share with my learners online. There's never an end to learning. There's something I want to share with my learners online, but it's like I've seen another question. Okay, the person I've already answered. Now, you people, types of compositions and what each one of them requires. And this was the point I was supposed to share with you. My written pieces. I wanted to share with you my written pieces and what each type of composition entailed. This was the bit of it. Allow me, I think I'm about to turn a page. In a narrative. I'm now getting into a narrative composition. A narrative composition might be my own creation, might be maybe I've taken it from somewhere, but there are some things I've indicated in green. Someone will wonder, teacher, you said you don't use cliches. What do you want us to write? And here I just have a bit of it. I'll share 2 examples of narrative compositions. And basically, narrative composition requires that you assume a persona. Not every day should you be that student. I want you to assume a persona and present a pleasant occurrence that is able to pique an examiner's interest. Make it memorable. Appeal to my emotions that I'm so interested. What is she saying? So, for example, you can be told, write a composition to justify the proverb, pride comes before a fall. And there's another point I didn't give you, originality. Don't come back online because I taught you about Sukia. Pride comes before a fall. You go and copy paste that story. It lacks originality. The teacher of English already knows how that story will end. It lacks originality. If it was your own original and I'm not familiar with it, ningekupea labda 18. But because maybe you have crammed that story and I'm very familiar with it, It looks bookish, crammed. Most probably I'll give you 13. Imagine 18 to 13. That's how much you will have made yourself to be at a disadvantage because of being bookish, cramming. Okay, without further ado, let's go a bit to my composition. And I've tried using green to show you how to write a mature composition. A mature composition, I want you to make use of these styles learned in class. So here goes. Here goes the composition. I start by saying, here I was, always making merry, turning a deaf ear. The idiom is turning a deaf ear. You are never listening. Another student at another level will say, here I was having fun and not listening to anyone. Those two students are not at the same level. One can manipulate English, another one cannot. They'll just use their simple English. It might be grammatically correct, but they've not. You need to be cut above the others. The way unaendaga kubuy something at the market, the kawaida shoe that everyone has will not be expensive. That one that is unique and good, of course, it will be expensive. You understand what I've said? We are about earning a marks. Now, here I was making merry, turning a deaf ear to advice, and not heeding to the wise counsel of elders, such as my own dad and uncles. Now we want someone to communicate their whole self. Vile una feel. The way you usually speak in a normal way. So what happens? I felt on top of the world as I drove my Mercedes Benz heading to see my beautiful girlfriend, Anita. The person has already assumed a persona. Already you're assuming this is a man speaking. He has a girlfriend, Anita. I had bought her a posh apartment in the leafy suburbs of Nairobi's Kilimani estate. She kept me busy on weekdays as I would later fly to the coast on weekends to see my wife, Salama. In Kiswahili, you have this one a lot. I don't know, you call it majazi, giving someone a name symbolic to their behavior. This guy has a girlfriend that he's spoiling. At the same time, he has a wife that has no problem with anyone. Yuko tu salama. So in brackets, I've indicated it might be symbolism of her behavior, but still knowing the line of thought I'm going towards, it might still be irony. This Salama that was thought to be safe, what she will do to him might bring out her name as ironical. She shouldn't be Salama. She should have been something like Matatizo. Anyway, let's continue. To see my wife Salama, as she dutifully took care of my family. Well, I had struck gold with this one. Struck gold is also an idiom. You don't just say, I'm so lucky to have Salama. With Salama, I had struck gold. When someone strikes gold, the person is very lucky. That is yet another idiom. We continue. And you can also always write better than this. I just want to see a mature composition. Unatupeleka pole pole. You make use of the styles learned in class. You communicate your whole self. How would you normally say it? If I find twist and turns, I'll direct you to it. If I find capturing mood, I'll still direct you to it. We continue. With Salam, I had struck gold. With this one, as my wealth multiplied under her care. But she should not complain at all, even when I failed to show up on some weekends. I had gone to great lengths to secure her a great future, working hard to provide for her needs and those of our children. Had I not married her, despite her antics of trapping me with a pregnancy and then threatening to commit suicide if I had not made an honest woman out of her? Rhetorical question. This is someone who is trying to bait you. The person wants you to be on their side. They're trying to be persuasive. I'm cheating, but then I'm a good man. This woman, in fact, she trapped me, telling me she's expectant. And she was threatening to commit suicide if I did not marry her. To marry someone, you make an honest woman out of someone. It has the meaning of, I'm using a lot of idioms. You make an honest woman out of someone, you make them into a wife. Antiques are vituko. Someone wants to act up. How was she acting? We can only imagine, but the person continues to express themselves. This one is only one paragraph of the story. We continue. An honest woman out of her. A man has to succumb to pressure and do the needful at times. So what is the guy preempting? He's already telling us when she was threatening to commit suicide, I had to marry her. That is what he's saying. When a man, you just don't tell it kawaida way. Oh, because she was trying to commit suicide, I decided to marry her. Please make it better. So we continue. She had my full trust, however. Unlike Anita, whom I knew, unlike Anita, I think over here I was supposed to say who. Oh, I knew her, so whom I knew. Yeah, it's okay. Unlike Anita, whom I knew was kept by my side due to my money. She would never turn against me, or would she? That is someone using foreshadowing. Rhetorical questions are capturing the mood. She says, oh, you see, kama Anita. This one would never turn against me. But then the person continues to ask you, or would she? With my job as a doctor, my people never lacked for anything. My children went to expensive private schools and ate the best of delicacies. They dressed in fashion items, with their clothes matching the mood, as my faithful wife always ensured. You people, you can also borrow from somewhere. There is a poem in KLB, book 1, talking about Mama Baby. Her children were wearing fashion items. Her clothes were matching the mood. Usichukue story original utupatie yote. Borrow from Sins of the Fathers. Borrow from. Those are meant to enhance your English. Now we continue. God had crowned it all with my handsomeness. The most handsome man ever lived. If arrogance had a face, it definitely would look like mine. Had someone told me that I would one day lose it all, yoni nini? Foreshadowing. Someone is still telling them, one day. The person is already preempting what will happen in his story. But they're bringing it pole pole, the way they were a boastful person. Had someone told me I would one day lose it all, I would have laughed myself silly and mocked their lack of faith. Don't they recognize greatness when they see it? Then you go to the proverb. The person still emphasizes, uliambiwa andike pride comes before a fall. Hakuanza tu na pride comes before a fall, but in between, have you been able to see his pride? He's so handsome. His children go to nice schools, and then in the middle, they redeem themselves and they're saying, I'm concentrating on pride comes before a fall. When tables turn, those who were dogs become gods. The person is trying to talk about the dynamic nature of life. The ones that used to be worshipped, they now become the ones that we are despising. Those who are dogs become gods. What about those who are gods? What about those who were gods? And those who were dogs become? The person leaves you with a question. And then they still tell you, your guess is as good as mine. Therefore, they're telling you, these ones who are dogs, their fortune can change. And this time round, they become the ones who are calling the shots. That is just a bit of a sneak peek into how to write an imaginative narrative. Allow me to stop sharing the screen in a bit. I can see already a question on my screen. And I want to discuss all the types of compositions. And if time allows, kidogo tu hivi, I'll go and share another narrative composition. Can you give an example of a creative composition? That is what I was giving. And then after that, I'll give another one, which is bonus. Bonus meaning I'll give you at the end of it, because I also want, tomorrow we are not having another class. So by the end of today, tunafaa kufanya nini? We should be done with the types of compositions. Have you seen my sample of an imaginative? I have assumed a persona, a very proud man with a girlfriend as well as a wife. Now let's go to another type of composition. It is not all about narratives. That composition, you can develop it any other way you feel like. Now let's go to number 2, and I want you to focus on number 2. Number 2, you can see they have spelled discursive. You can make reference to your Form 3 textbooks. Discursive, or we call it expository, it tasks you with the presentation of points in a logical and clear way, as the purpose is to achieve comprehension of the issues raised. I know someone is about to ask me questions. Teacher, points, how many? How many points, teacher? We do not look at the number of points, we look at your linguistic competence. Kama hujui kizungu nani, avoid doing number 2. Number 2, you cannot make use of your proverbs, your idioms to impress the examiner. Number 2, you can only use English in a very clear way. And this one, I also don't want to spend a lot of time with it, because what have we been doing? We have been doing essays. What did I tell you about essays? Topic sentence, you explain it in a convincing manner, you clinch it. That is what you have been doing. That is what you have been doing in our other lessons. You just relate. After all, English is infused with literature. We are teachers of English and literature. Other teachers are maths and physics. You might be tempted kuuliza mwalimu wa English, which is your other subject? English and literature, it is infused. So things you've learned in that essay writing, you can bring it into your expository writing. And also we need to have an introduction, you guys. We can't just begin with, the internet is bad because of addiction. Apana. You can tell us something about the internet. You can even do the same introduction. You can talk about, you can outline. The internet has been brought to improve our lives, in that it is an advancement in terms of technology, full stop. Then you continue and say something like, as much as the internet has a lot of advantages, it also brings with it a number of disadvantages, as will be discussed below. Hiyo ni expository writing. How different is it from our essays that we have been doing in the recent past weeks? I'm on discursive, I still continue. There's a point before the EG. Make use of transitional words and each point in a paragraph of its own. Kwani, what have we been learning? The same thing. So this one I'll only read for you one paragraph. This one I'll only read for you one paragraph, and then you can move on. My paragraph 1 says, oh, someone wants me to adjust the font. I'm trying to zoom in. The person is getting it from the computer. The person is getting it from the computer, from the laptop. Maybe it might be a bit difficult, but don't worry, see the much you can. At the end of it, I'm unveiling the same document, word for word. So what are we doing? To begin with, those are the transitional words I'm encouraging you to use. This one was the introduction. No, indicator introduction. This one is mine for teaching my students. So introduction, you can just talk about basic things, the internet, whatever. You can even tell us maybe it was invented in USA by the DoD, Department of Defense, whatever you know about the internet. I'm not even sure about my details in the introduction. You just tell us something. Okay. To begin with, the internet might lead to addiction. What is that? That is a topic sentence. Then, can you give supporting sentences to words the same? This one is not the type I'll use my misemo, my idioms to impress the examiner. But what am I trying to achieve with a discursive composition? I need to achieve convincing. Someone is asking me whether I'm a teacher on Top Notch TV. Yes, I am. Maybe the voices are very similar. Yes, I am. Back to our class. We are saying we now need to explain the what did I mean by it leads to addiction? Might lead to addiction. Too much screen time as one visits the various sites leads to addiction in the long run. Sites such as TikTok have become so addictive, especially among the youth. I'm explaining myself. Simply, what did I mean by addiction? I cannot give you a single sentence and I tell you, thank you so much, that one is a paragraph. No, we continue. Some may even fail. We are still talking about addiction. Some may even fail to do their daily duties in favor of watching TikTok. If left unchecked, such people are suffering from an addiction similar to an alcoholic's love for the bottle, which is eventually so hard to get rid of. You're trying kuongezea chumvi. Telling someone addiction to the internet is bad. Even seeing the way I'm comparing it to an alcoholic having an addiction of the bottle, which is very hard to get rid of. The paragraph continues. Such people, when they attempt to stay away for even a few hours, feel as though they are sick. This time I was supposed to say, this time spent on the internet might have been used to do constructive things such as improving one's grades or growing their talents. Where is the clincher? Addiction is a disadvantage of the internet. Addiction is a disadvantage of the internet. Kwani, what was the question? We speak about disadvantages. So you keep bringing us back to the fold. You keep saying, whatever you ask me to discuss, one of this point fits in with your discussion. Let me go to the chat a bit. Okay, I'm supposed to close the screen first and then I go to the chat section. The chat section. Someone asks, why do I write a very good mesmerizing composition but later find a C in English overall? Techno, I wish you give me your very good mesmerizing composition. And I'm not making fun of you, please. I want to see what exactly is the problem because each one of us knows we are very good. Your composition maybe might be, I'm just suggesting, I don't know your composition. Might be you're writing something interesting, but your grammar is terrible. You might give us a wah 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 kind of story, but I still learn with my 9. The person does not know where to use capital letters. The person does not know where to use the full stops. The person, their spellings are terrible. It might be a very appealing composition, but then your fluency in language, and if you began with us at the beginning of that composition, at the beginning of this lesson, we said the bulk of your marks is in the fluency of your language. That is one of the, I'm just preempting. Nafikiria tu. It might be your language has a lot of grammatical errors. A person who makes grammatical errors with a very good story, I can give them 9. And a person who gives me a very boring story without grammatical errors might get 12. Hapo ndio atakushinda. It is about your linguistic capability. After all, it is a composition in English. And please share with me that composition. Not here, please. I've always given my number. Share with me that composition. I promise to read it. I promise tomorrow, because tomorrow I still have other classes. I promise tomorrow by 4, I will give you a verdict. In Mimina, yourself, one-on-one. Otherwise, please shut the screen a bit. Shut the screen so that you continue. Shut your screen from your end so that you continue, and then I'll tell you how we can. And please, If I say ni approach, it is up to you to approach me. And I'll tell you I'll give you a clinical verdict. Clinical meaning hii ni shida specific to nani. I'll be able to tell you whether that C should have gone to a lower B, because I'm sure hakuna venye composition of 18 will look like composition of 10. Never, never. Unless the teacher did not even read. Can also be another error from another place that is not the student. Please share with me that composition. I will really appreciate. By 4 tomorrow, you ask me, teacher, where is mine? I'll do it. Okay, let's move on to another type of composition. Let's move to another type of composition. I want to talk about the third one in terms of the one we usually give in terms of priority, yenye inakuja mara mingi, number 3. It should be a descriptive composition. Have you been in my class since the beginning? There's something I said. What did you smell in a descriptive composition? What did you feel? What did you taste? We want a composition that appeals to the 5 senses. If you're able to do that, you have written a very good descriptive composition. And we're at number 3 if someone is lost. I'm trying to zoom it for the sake of our counterparts who might be using a laptop. If you're using a phone, I'm sure your font is as good as mine. Number 3, you are told, make use of the 5 senses. Example of a question. Describe a scene of crime you witnessed. Describe a scene of crime you witnessed. Now look at what I've underlined through and through. What I've underlined are things that touch to the 5 senses, because this composition is out to test your... Did you ever sit in class and you're told that a descriptive composition should make use of the 5 senses? Kama hujawahi kuambiwa, it is this opportunity I've told you. Okay, without further ado, let's read so that we also do our number 4. We do our number 4. I've named it number 5. I don't know, maybe typing error. But anyway, we're at number 3. Avoid looking below that so that we discuss. It was a bright, sunny morning. Bright, sunny morning, sense of sight. Niliona nini? The heat of the sun was yet to start scorching. What is scorching? It speaks to the sense of touch. What did you feel? I sat outside my aunt's house to get away from the heat inside, as the house was made of iron sheets. Thus it was ever hot despite the day's favorable weather. The person is already telling you it is already hot inside. Sense of touch. Uli feel nini? You continue. What did you hear? We are trying to describe a ghetto. A ghetto in the real sense. At the same time, we are keeping originality. Ghetto kuna kaanga aje. So, from a nearby bar, reggae music played. What did you hear? Reggae music played. What did you smell? As the smell of alcohol, I'm trying to portray a ghetto in Nairobi. There'll be the smell of alcohol. People drink anytime, mixed with the waste. Waste, I'm trying to make use of euphemism. I don't just need to say urine and feces. I'm just trying to call it waste. If you've ever been in a ghetto, you know that the sewage will freely flow. So we continue, waste overflowing. From the untamed sewer lines could clearly be discerned. Discern is that ability of seeing something clearly. Something that is not so obvious, but did I tell you you're also looking at vocabulary? I want you to find your 10 words and use them in the correct way. Anytime you use a vocabulary above the rest, tick, tick. The more the number of ticks, the more your composition is becoming superior to your counterparts, people of your age. That is how we distinguish between a 12 and an 18. Okay. I almost had the rumbling of my stomach as it complained. You see, I'm still making use of styles. I'm making use of personification. The stomach is complaining of hunger, attributing to the fact that I had not had any breakfast that morning. I buried my head between my thighs. Tulisema nini ingine? You bring it out in a natural way. Someone is feeling hungry. They've gone out of the house because it is very hot. The person decides, this jar, how do I counter it? The person puts their head between their thighs. What we want to get that picture in a very natural way. Over here, ole wako, let God help you with the level of English that you know. Someone wants to bring out that picture, but their English has made them incapacitated. Ni kama mtu amekatwa mkono mmoja. Their English is incapacitated. They can't bring it out appropriately. Now we continue. Buried my head between my thighs as I tried to fathom. Fathom is just to understand. I can choose to use the word understand, but if I know another word meaning the same, I want my English to rise above another person's level of English as I try to fathom the difficult life that was the slum. As I sat consumed in my thoughts, two shots rang out. Chwa, chwa. Even that one is a style. That one is an idiophone. Chwa, chwa. In a natural way, vile utaisikia. We want you to maintain a natural way of narration. So we continue. The sound of gunshots jostled me back to reality. Jostled is like when you're sleeping in class and then I touch you a bit. The way nitakustua and then you come back to reality. We are looking at also the vocabulary in English. Can you remember my point number one? Fluency in language. We are judging your linguistic capability. So the gunshots, they just told me back to reality. The person had faded into his thoughts. Mawazo, so many. It has taken him away, but then the guns bring him back to reality. And then I saw people running helter-skelter. This one is a descriptive essay. Composition. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel? I saw people running helter-skelter, trying to find cover, lest is the meaning of in case they become victims in unpredictable turn of events, as is usually the norm. I collected myself, and later pole pole. I collected myself and gazed towards the flank. Flank is side. You can simply say side. But what are we trying to aim? Our English to be above my other, my counterparts. The flank is a side. Towards the flank, the gunshots had come from. I decided to join the throng of people headed in the same direction to bear witness to the unusual event. Something was definitely amiss. Hiyo ni simple sentence. A simple sentence will always capture the mood. Someone says something was definitely amiss. Amiss is wrong. I observed as a young man's body lay in a pool of sewage water. Two gunshots to the head, having ended his life instantly. What did you see, a young man? Blood oozed. That is another thing you saw. Blood oozed from the side of his mouth. Astride him, a policeman stood holding his tool of trade, an AK-47 rifle. His comrade policeman patted him on the back. We are seeing twists and turns. We had gunshots. We thought these ones are thieves terrorizing us. Suddenly we see someone being congratulated. He is being patted on the back. A gesture to congratulate him for a good job. The crowd seemed to relish in the moment. To relish is to enjoy. I later came to learn that the deceased had been a terrible gangster who had unleashed untold suffering to the slum dwellers. Later, as my aunt served meat for lunch, I acted strangely. When I pushed the plate away, the food had a strange taste of blood. This now we are relating events. Someone eating meat, and it is already in their mind, so they can look at the meat and they feel this one tastes blood. Albeit it was a fragment of my imagination. The earlier sight of brain matter that had splattered. You know, when you are hit, your brain risks being splattered in the streets. So when this guy sees meat, he can only imagine the brain of someone that he had seen splattered in that morning incident had done its best to sever my appetite. If I add letter E, hiyo ni severe. To sever is to cut my appetite with the meat. What examiners are looking for? Your command of English. Are you able to use some out of the ordinary vocabulary in the right way? You can't just go about using vocabulary that you don't even know the meaning. And then I'll answer all your questions together. Please let me get to the last type of composition. This one will also not take me a lot of time. This one will also not take me a lot of time because it is also something very familiar to our learning. But there's something I told my students where it has not yet come in the exam so far. Might this be the year we are tested on an argumentative composition? Anyway, let me go to the basics of argumentative composition. Someone had asked the question and I promised to answer. Argumentative compositions, they will tell you to support or to oppose a given statement. What else? Each point that you give, build up on it using convincing evidences. What have we been learning about paragraphs? If you say boarding schools are good, give us a convincing argument to support it. That is what I've said at number 2. Number 3, in another paragraph, this one I was supposed to say in another paragraph, you can still give points on your opponent's side. Let's say my side, day schools are better. I'm supporting day schools are better. So for each point that speaks to day schools being better, what will I do? I will expound on a point, a paragraph. Then I'll still go back and say, I'll still try and reason like my opponents. I'll say, my opponents will still argue, but when I'm arguing for my opponent's side, I can still decide to show them the fault with their side. How do you do it in Kiswahili? Okay, maybe I'll try first of all in English. We have heard from my opponent who said that students in boarding schools, they pass more because they have more access to teachers. However, I want to challenge my opponent by saying that students who are serious, as much as they are in day schools, as long as they are serious, they can still undertake their own studies. And on the weekdays, they can still consult from their teachers. You try to show your opponent the points that they can use against you. You take their points and you negate them. You show them why their point is not a point. That is what I'm trying to say. Another way you can do it is you can still talk about in one paragraph. However, my opponents can still say that boarding schools have an advantage such as tight security, more access to their teachers, but these ones, I want to tell them, can still be found in day schools. You just take their intended points and you try to show them how it will not be. I'll answer all these observations. Don't worry, you can still keep them coming. Now, when you're in an argumentative composition, one way of telling us which side you're on, the side you're on, each point a paragraph of its own. You're supposed to support or oppose. Because kuna mwenye atasema, teacher, what about if I decide the two sides? You've been told the instructions to oppose or to support. If you're supporting the motion, you bring out your points very strongly. And even as you're coming to your conclusion in an argumentative composition, you can still do what? Make your stance clear. You might have in one paragraph spoken on the side of your opponent, but then you still go ahead and do what? Make your stand clear. How do I make my stand clear? Let's go to paragraph, the last one. I've turned the page. We are on the last paragraph. What have we said? Example of a conclusion. As much as boarding schools might perform better academically, due to around the clock attention from the teacher, I still maintain that day schools are better off due to the above given advantages, such as, maybe you can even go ahead and say, such as whatever you had. Let's thus embrace day schools to keep up with your son or daughter's well-being and growth. That one is a conclusion. You are reminding people, my side is still, I've not crossed over to the other side. I'm still in support of day schools, and you make your stance. And your stance can always be captured in your conclusion. Having said that, I'll share the document. Let me go to my chat section, answer your questions to the best of my ability. What makes a good introduction and conclusion in what? If it is in creative writing, it is your ability to impress the examiner. Be above the rest. Even the way you conclude, maybe there's a twist and turn. And the examiner says, Allah, I didn't see this one coming. What a great conclusion. There's a way you can also introduce your essay by picking the interest of that examiner in the way you bring out the story. In literature, we've always talked about expository. Expository is the way you open your story. The same way that the movie I'll be watching on TV, the way it begins in 5 minutes, it will tell me whether I'll watch that movie or not. So, what makes a good introduction and conclusion? Your ability to pick the interest of the examiner and maintain it. Now, when I'm a cram, they can have a very good introduction. In between, you realize that student is a C student. There's nothing much about language. They can't manipulate English as a language. They can speak in what are the 4 categories? Class D, you guess. The student is simply writing words that look like English. You guess to understand what they're saying. Category C, you're very full of cliche. If your teacher is fond of giving you 8, 9, 10, you can write, but you're not confident in the language. A student who is in C, a lot of mistakes of grammar. That's why to one student I said, please allow me to see your composition. If you have a lot of problems with grammar, your sentences look like the word order is wrong, we shall give you a C. Without any apologies, we shall give you a C. Abby, maybe someone is joining our class later. If you ask a question that has already been asked, I'll refer you to the recording. It is already on YouTube. It's already on YouTube. Please, if you ask a question I've already answered, like the length of the composition, I said 2.5. All the compositions in paper 3, the length is standard 2.5 anyway. What about category B of a student? Category B starts from 11 to 15. 11 is a student whose writing is a bit clear, but then 11 and 12, you are flat. What is flat? There's nothing that is unique about your writing. You are telling a story, your English seems okay, but you can slide back to 10. You and that person who gets 10, you're not so far apart. You're writing in a flat way. Then you woke up, we went to school, the teacher was already in school, the teacher told us to pick papers. What are you really saying? But your English is so okay. 11 and 12, your English is flat, you're so okay. 13 and 14, I have now started seeing some bits of your composition that are impressive to me. I'm now marking your two ticks on the way you're using your language. That one is 13 and 14. We are calling them natural. This one English is their language of communication. Struggle. 13, 14, this one is not struggling. Now, for you to get to an A, you need to be natural and effortless. You need to have a spark. Spark, what is spark? Spark is that composition that makes me want to continue reading. 17, 18, 19, they do not have an error in grammar. You can read their whole composition. There's nothing you'll underline. If anything, you'll keep tick, tick, tick. That one is, you've seen the difference between D, C, B, and A. It is nothing that the teacher does not like you. There's something about your composition. Let's continue. Would you mind sending me a sample of high scoring composition if you have? It is a genuine concern, but the high scoring compositions, we do not live with any material from the student. If I was marking maybe from some students and I kept, I could have taken one for you. I could have taken a photo, one for you, but the ones at the KCSE, we are not even allowed to take a photo of these people's work. It is illegal. But then just follow my prompts. Those are compositions that are high scoring. Yeah. Someone asked, is it true when your first two paragraphs impress an examiner, it gives you an opportunity? This one is, if your first two, this is for an examiner who does not, this is for an examiner who does not read it fully and might encourage a student to cram. But then, if you find a very fast reader, an examiner who reads very fast and reads all of it, we shall catch you midway. How shall we catch you? First two paragraphs, either someone copied, and I'm not saying the one who asked. There's a composition, there's one time we saw it. First paragraph arrests your attention. Inakushika. Wow. Let me continue. When you go to paragraph 3, the student cannot even construct sentences. That one was the one when the invigilator was sleeping. That person was clearly copying. Clearly copying. How does your paragraph 1 and 2 not relate with your paragraph 3, 4, and 5? You are copying from someone. That one we need to acknowledge. And another thing I'll tell Marquez, also when you're going to the exam room, pray for the person who will mark your composition. If you're lucky, you find the one who, the first two paragraphs. If you're a very good person with praying, but I believe God is a just God. You cannot pray yako inaangukia the right hands, mwenye asomangi, alafu nakuja kutuambia Bwana asifiwe. Paragraph 1 and 2 hakusoma na Bwana asifiwe zaidi. Please, if you just learn how to write, make it interesting through and through all the paragraphs, and you'll be good to go. Which book do you recommend students for extra practice? For extra practice, I usually ask my students to do this. To go ahead, there's this book from NES. NES, these are the initials. There's a company that publishes books, each one in its own category. If you want oral literature, kuna kitabu ya oral literature. So this one from NES, NES, creative writing from NES, you'll find it helpful. Also, if you could make the short stories your friend, a lot of English you will learn. A lot of English you will learn from the short stories. A lot of experiences you can borrow, but not entirely. Kindly clarify to me. Okay, this one I've already answered. And I can see people, what want to check? Anyway, how important is handwriting? Well, Doreen, you know what? An examiner will have to read and get what you are writing. After all, you are paid for that. But there's another one, even if you give 10 examiners, there's another one, even if we give 10 examiners, none of them can see what you are writing. So if I cannot see, what will I do? I will guess. And I'm not a very bad person. There's even some person in Form 4, but even their handwriting, You cannot tell whether this is A or, and I'm not talking about slightly. At this person, letter P yake haikangi sawa. I'm talking about someone. So you comment illegible and you give that student 0.3 very fast. I'm not talking about your handwriting should be the best, but it should be legible. Isomeke. Not the best, but legible. If it is legible, we are marking your English. If it is legible, there might be someone with that kind of handwriting that is just very nice. But then that handwriting, there's nothing. The person has written in English, nothing, totally nothing. When handwriting yako, I will not add you even 1 mark to my 07. I will not add you anything because of your good handwriting. Because of your good handwriting. So what am I trying to tell my class? We don't mark the handwriting, but we encourage you to be legible. We encourage the writing to be legible, something I can read. The one who does not even know how to write, I'll just comment illegible. And if I'm being honest, someone will still go through the same work and comment illegible. We shall take it to the next level. You know, we have levels. I mark examiner, team leader marks, not all of them. If there's one with a problem, I'll just go back and refer them to my team leader. Sir, madam, can you read this? No. They'll refer them to the assistant chief examiner. I can't read. To the chief examiner. At the end of it, we've tried to help you, but you are beyond help. 0.3, very fast. Or even 0.2. Because they recognize there's something you've written, I just cannot see. Okay, someone is still asking, where on YouTube can we get the lessons? One of the sites is Beautiful Literature. Another site is Top Notch Online TV. Personally, I've discussed on Top Notch Online TV, but still, these lessons we are having in this our particular group, they have been live streamed on Beautiful Literature. And I hope the person who said inform us, I hope it was in line with the person who has asked on which site. Beautiful Literature. Okay, someone says they cannot find NES. Myself, I have books from NES. Maybe I did not carry them home. You can also speak to your teachers there. And also, if you can't access NES, it is a workshop that teachers were given every year. Tunaendanga workshop, we come out with lots of books, and I'm not even among the authors because someone might think teacher wants us to buy from her. Please no. But you can ask any teacher of English, they'll tell you the books from NES. In your school library, you must be having some books from NES. But if you don't, it is not a problem. Books are many. I don't know which ones are available. Are you making use of your library? If you're making use of your library, you will find, with the aid of the librarian and your English teacher, you can always find very many books on creative writing. Myself, I can just say maybe, or maybe all teachers of English. Is it national education? I can't remember. Please, I also don't want to answer from ignorance. I want to give you an answer that makes sense, an answer that is truthful. Even though we have that body that was publishing for us books, it is NES. I'll tell you later, and maybe what it stands for. Anyway, what was I answering on, please? What was I answering on? The last question, what was it? In the chat section, and I can see most people have left online. Is it bad to cross a sentence? The same thing I've already answered. Can you still guide well on paper 1? I teach my students paper 1, but then I don't feel as competent as a paper 1 examiner would. And I think we're organizing, you can organize with teacher Martha. She can always guide you on what our group is planning. A paper 1 examiner, I'm sure, can do better than me when it comes to paper 1. That one we just contend with it. We also give credit where it is due. A paper 1 examiner can still do better than I am. Teacher, we're having another lesson. This was the last one for the holiday. if I might be invited in later, maybe in later days, we can still always engage. Otherwise, oh, the last point was this. Myself, maybe someone will ask me, teacher, tunataka kitabu ya creative writing. But sometimes you guys, we can only teach you how to make your composition better, but also we have writers, it is something inborn. You just give me a topic, and most of our English teachers, almost all, just give them the topic. They'll come up with a story, you'll be left with wow. That one is a natural writer. But you can still learn on how we can be better writers. Thank you, teacher. You have equipped me. I must continue shining. Thank you. I appreciate if I've been able to make an impact. I appreciate. Okay, let me see. There's someone who has raised their hand. There's someone who has raised a hand. Doreen, speak
Yeah,
up.
I didn't know this. I thought this week we were having another set of lessons. Because I wanted to ask you, but it's fine.
Mhm,
There are some points our teacher gave us on expository, and she told us to
mhm.
go and research, but I haven't heard you talk about them. Can I
Okay,
forward them to you
example.
so
Okay.
you
Oh, by
try?
the way, the better way is to forward.
Mm-hmm.
The better way is to forward, because with every minute I see people are living online. But anyway, you're here for yourself. You're not here
Yeah,
because people are there. Yeah, you can forward
yeah.
me. I'll try
And then you
understand.
try and explain to me, because I've really tried, and I was listening to you when you were talking about expository. You didn't
Mm-hmm,
like mention them, so like I was left like, "Hi,
mm-hmm,
sasa hapa
mm.
kunaendaje?"
Okay,
So it's
share with me
okay.
so that you also communicate. I take you
Okay,
from her
so.
point of view to my point of view. We see whether we were
Mm-hmm.
saying the same thing in different words. Sindio?
Okay, so thank you. And thank you for the 2 weeks we've been together.
Okay, it's been a pleasure. I hope we've learned. I'm also learning. You make
Okay,
me to
bye.
devise a story, I'm also learning. Thank you so much. I think at this point today we are almost spending 2.5. I'll avail the write up in the group. I see someone is also appreciating. You follow on YouTube. I appreciate your following. How often should one write a composition, mwalimu, to get acquainted and mature up? I want you to partner up with someone. Because if you write and no one is marking, you'll agree with me, it will be kazibure, it will be futile. If you can find a teacher who is willing to walk with you that walk, that timetable of yours, if you feel the area that is letting me down is creative writing, you can you can request the teacher to walk that journey with you. And if that teacher, he or she agrees, you can write as many as you can. And also you'll be going back for correction. For correction, you become competent. You remember, practice makes perfect. Myself, I loved writing at a very young age. And I also had the privilege. Nowadays, you guys are watching TV so much. Those days, you used to read a story that has like 400 pages, and the interest will keep you going. At the end of it, you are very competent. You can give experiences 120 experiences per story. So it is up to the students we work. Up to the students we work. I hope I've been of help. Hope I've been of help. Any other person who wants to speak to me, please, my inbox. I've always shared my number here. And if I don't answer you today, don't get offended. There's still another class I have very early in the morning. I have to check on one or two things. But once I'm free, by the end of tomorrow, I will address your concern. Once I'm free, by the end of tomorrow, I will address your concern. Aya, thank you so much for your time.